this again. B Cub is a wealth of facts about The Wire. I have to say, the man does. I don't even know. Now I got to make sure he ain't making this stuff up.
Well, you know, I've been known to
Wire Wikipedia, but I do have
he is dropping these bars.
It's
weren't there a
the
number
book.
of people in the show that were actually from Baltimore? They were not actors. Is that
You know what? It's funny you mentioned that.
That
We're
is
going to
true.
get into a little bit of that in just a moment. In fact, how about we get into that right now?
Oh yeah.
You see how I paused there for a moment? With 5 fast facts about The
That was
Wire.
a layup.
I love us.
You saw the
I love
layup?
us.
That was the assist.
That
That
I'm
was
talking
a
about
boom.
that was a Magic Johnson.
That was a
like,
boom.
Yeah, I gave it to Dana, tossed it right to it. So, fact number 1, 0 for 2, The Wire, a show that many critics have labeled the best series ever created, never won an Emmy. In fact, throughout its 5-season run, it was only nominated twice, both times for writing. And that speaks again to when we talk about this idea of how black talent is never given the same push as other talent. Nobody recognizes it the same way. I mean, I'm glad the writing deserves to get those nominations.
definitely.
But the fact that no one recognized the acting on that show speaks volumes.
that was the blackest cast that I think you've ever really seen as a whole. If you think about
Blackest
all
cast
of
since
the,
Roots.
Outside of Different World and
Since
Cosby
Roots.
Show.
Yeah, exactly.
And they also have never received Emmys, which is crazy.
I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that it was on HBO should have shoehorned it in for an Emmy right then and there because
Yeah.
at the time, if you were an HBO show, it was all
Yeah.
but
Yeah, it's a
you had it
setup.
on lock.
you were great on the
And the
curve.
fact
You were
that
getting
all
graded
the
on the
actors
curve.
got work, yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you think about and when you think about the some of the stars that emerged post Wire, I mean, like
True.
Idris Elba is a
Michael B.
superstar.
Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan, like
right.
so I mean the amazing talent that was on the show, and I mean I don't know if it was like maybe it was because there were like too many characters, and so I don't know.
Good point.
but
Well, I got an
that
answer,
that
but-
is crazy.
Yeah, I got a different answer, but we'll leave that alone for now. Let's go to fact number.
Hey man, look, oh man, I love this show, man. Number 2, The Corner. The Corner. The show's creator and head writer, David Simon, did win awards for a project that built The Wire's foundation. The Corner, an HBO miniseries based on a nonfiction book, depicted life in poverty-stricken and drug-filled West Baltimore and features some of the same actors. This is what got me. I was a fan of The Corner. That's what got me into The Wire. When I saw the people who were doing The Corner was doing The Wire, it just made me automatically just dive right on into it, man. So The Corner was dope. Shout out to the Candy. Definitely should have won. I can't remember her last name. But the
Candy
mom,
Alexander.
Candy Alexander. And if the person who won the Emmy that year was Halle Berry, and she won it for playing Dorothy Dandridge, which she was great, but Halle Berry was playing a pretty entertainer.
Yeah,
And won an Emmy.
It's not a stretch.
That's not. Candy Alexander got dirtied up and just portrayed and kind of gave us that first look at what they made Bubbles. They made it a different type of drug addict, that entire show. If you never watched it, y'all need to watch it. It's dope.
Yeah, it's an excellent miniseries.
Yeah.
Okay, fact number 3. By the end of season 5, David Simon knew the writing was on the wall for the show as ratings continued to plummet. But according to Vice.com articles, Simon had plans for a 6th season had they not been canceled. The series would have covered Southeast Baltimore's exploding Latino population and immigration as a source of friction in American life.
This show was ahead of its time.
Yeah,
Would've
it
been-
would have been
Man,
so
listen.
ahead of its time.
Because
I
if you
wish
think
that
about it,
we would have had
for
it.
a city like Baltimore didn't have a huge Latino population there. If you think about being that close, I mean, D.C. had it. Of course, New York.
New York.
Everybody had it, but Baltimore didn't have that big of a Hispanic population, which was wild.
Well, you know what's crazy? When I see that, it makes me think about Orange is the New Black, which also did a similar arc of how we just had different themes within the system. I think that's another good example of a systematic show.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that season when we went into ICE and talked about that team and what that impact was. So again, I credit this is just way ahead of its curve. Because oh my gosh, that'd have been amazing.
Absolutely.
And they even wanted, it said in the book, and All the Pieces Matter, that Simon, he even toyed around with the idea of doing a season around absent fathers and was going to tie in the fact that Cheese Wagstaff was Randy Wagstaff's dad. Little Randy in the middle school season, Cheese was his dad. And so it was going to tie in the Cheese and then how Randy and, Weebay naming and all. It was, but I mean, it's just crazy he didn't get all that. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. All right, shots fired. Fact number 4, believe it or not, in its 60 hours and 5 seasons, only a single police officer ever fired his weapon. Roland Presbeluski, better known as Prez, the officer turned teacher, fired his weapon a total of 3 times, accidentally shooting around at a wall and returning fire in the towers in the first season episode, The Detail, then mistakenly firing a fatal and career-ending shot at fellow officer in season 3 episode, Slapstick. Prez.
It can't be stressed enough why is why it's important that happened the way it happened on the show, that only one officer ever fired their weapon, because we all have grown up watching propaganda on television. So we're accustomed to watching TV that promotes this idea of cops as these action heroes. And it's like, there's all this methodical stuff that's going on in this show, and it's showing when an officer's bad. Sometimes he's bad because he's a bad person. Sometimes he's bad because he's simply incompetent. But whatever the case, they don't try to make. They weren't trying to create a story of heroes and villains. They were showing how this system had failed by even putting these people in that place in the first place. So they didn't make it all about gunfire and make it sexy. And I just think that's genius. That's
Something else.
the way it was.
Wasn't Prez? He was the son-in-law of my man who was beefing with Zabaka. So that shows he shouldn't have even been in that position, but it's just that little piece of nepotism or what have you that got him even there. And it's crazy how much that happens in the law enforcement community.
It's genius. It's genius the way that it's written, and that we watch this entire show. That's what some people call a cop drama, and there was never a time, for the most part, that cops were shooting guns, and we didn't even notice it. So Fact number 5, based on a true story, many of The Wire's colorful characters were Baltimore residents. Some have been steeped in the street life the series portrayed. One of the most notable people was Melvin Williams. Thought to be one of the inspirations for Avon Barksdale, Melvin Williams trafficked heroin in Baltimore throughout the 1970s and 80s to the tune of, according to the man himself, a couple $100 million. Williams was arrested in 1985 following a wiretap investigation. On the show, Williams played the Deacon in seasons 3 and 4.
That's wild, because this entire time, dude, I thought that was JB Smooth's daddy. I did not know that. None of y'all thought that either. None of y'all. Y'all ain't think that was
like
JB Smooth's daddy.
He does look like JB Smooth. He does look like JB Smooth. But and he plays like he's a deacon, a guy in the church who's trying to get people to move in a different direction. But
kicking it with Cuddy. He was hanging with Cuddy.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that Wish Kid had mentioned earlier about how all these people from the city of Baltimore that add this authenticity to it. People who haven't even acted before, and the level of authenticity that they add that doesn't take you out of it is brilliant. Yeah,
I thought Snoop was one of them too. I read something about her.
Snoop is definitely Snoop, and then also
she's not an actress.
Snoop's from Baltimore. She, like I said, Michael K. Williams saw her. He was out of the club and was just like, it's something. Who else was in there? The dude who ran with Bruh Muzon, his little sidekick, nephew, or what have you. He was actually the young man that The Corner was written about. So he was the real life Andre on The Corner. So he had a part in that show and wasn't even, in that story, but he was on that show. Andre? They talk about the extras and everything. They would be out in this shooting in real neighborhoods, and so they talk about how you shoot a scene and there's real junkies around, there's real drug addicts around, and Bubs even said that when he was on the break, this one cat came up and was, hey, they giving out testers around the corner. You want to go on over there, because he really thought he was part of the show. It's just
This is the Scenario Radio Show. Real talk with a playlist.
That's the